Welcome to Beyond Love and Light podcast, where we bypass the fluff, lift the veil, and explore how to navigate the human experience as a spiritual being. I am Laura Gavander, a transformation coach, psyche and emotion code facilitator. Join me as we delve into topics relating to human consciousness, alternative healing modalities, quantum physics, and the psychology of spirituality. I bring you insights and information from amazing guests and my own experience and observations. Please remember to subscribe to get notifications. And if you'd like to know more about me and my work, please go to my website, www.lauragavander.com. So let's get on with the podcast. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Beyond Love and Light podcast. I'm very excited today. It's going to be a little different format. It's not going to be the usual interview, style that I usually do. It's actually going to be more of a conversation. I'm so happy to welcome back my dear friend, colleague, and podcast co-host for another podcast that we do called Talking Timelines. I will have the links below, so you can go check that out. I did a full interview with Janine way back in the beginning when I relaunched this podcast, and I will have the links below if you'd like to check that out to really hear what Janine is all about. There's so much we could talk about just in her background and the work she does and how important it is. Janine is known as the consciousness architect, and her goal is to help people gently release trauma and stress from memories that cause health issues. These memories are the root cause of disease that often lead to mental health problems and addictions. She's a certified hypnotherapist, counselor, NLP practitioner, energy healer, teacher, speaker, and author, just to name a few things that Janine does when she's not saving the planet. Janine has a really unique ability to see how we're impacted by different energies and mind control methods. And we're going to discuss that a bit later. But we actually are going to talk about mind control and the prevalence of it right now and how important it is to discuss this. And being that we're both practitioners who work with the subconscious, we work with people to heal and to achieve higher levels of consciousness. And I thought that this is a topic that I don't believe is, Janine and I, we talk about this a lot on our podcast, but it's so prevalent and it's beneath the awareness of so many people that I thought it was really, really important to devote a show just to talk about that. So, Janine, I'm so happy to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me again, Laura.
Very excited to talk about this. So, I'm using the term mind control as kind of like the umbrella sort of statement because there's a lot of things that fall under that, like brainwashing and subliminal suggestion and predictive programming, and there's so many different areas that actually fall under this. And I thought it was really important to kind of look at all the different ways that we're being mind controlled or brainwashed. I know that sounds really malevolent and it sounds pretty serious, but it is actually. It is serious because it's happening to us on a daily basis and it's affecting our lives. So I just wanted to just share something that occurred to me as I was thinking about this. When I was in college, which was many, many years ago, I studied advertising. I thought I was going to go into advertising. It's really funny because I always knew I wanted to work with the subconscious, but that's not the way I really wanted to work with it. And I actually took a course called The Psychology of Advertising, and it was all about the subliminal messages. And I was in college a long time ago. And there was an entire industry that is built on affecting people subliminally. That's what advertising is. It's playing on fear. It's playing on you're either escaping pain or you're going towards pleasure, and that is how everything is basically formulated in advertising. So it's operating almost on a daily basis. We really can't get away from it. So just kind of like, what is your kind of view on where right now, what do you think is the biggest way we're being mind controlled?
At the moment, I think it's through social media and the news, basically, and movies and radio. So it's media, basically, is the worst form of it. But I think before we get into the types, Laura, it might be a good idea that I try and give a brief explanation of why it's happening.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah. So for people at home that may not be aware, the planet is going through a a leap. When we went from the Stone Age to the Bronze Age to the and so on. We're going into the golden age now, and it happens roughly every 26,000 years. So it's planetary alignments that affect the frequency that's coming into the planets. I'm really cutting this short. And we we have an opportunity to leap into the golden age by raising our own frequency. So human beings are not solid physical entities that we think we are. We're actually, if you go into a cell, into an atom, it's 99.99999% what we're being told is empty space. It's actually plasma consciousness, a field of consciousness that stores memories. And everything within that, the string theories, the codes that within that are what are projected into our reality. So we project our consciousness, which looks like the world outside. And people are now explaining that it's actually like a simulation, that our consciousness and our collective consciousness is creating the mass movie. We were all in our individual movie, but there's a mass movie going on. So when you understand that your consciousness is what's projecting reality and the consciousness of the masses is what's projecting the reality that we experience, for example, at the moment where there's wars going on that we all know about, these are memories of wars from the past being churned back up and reprojected into the world around us so that we've got the ability to delete war memories in our own consciousness and erase war completely by doing that and becoming neutral across the globe, the mass consciousness. And there is a certain amount of people needed to override the mass movie. So what happens is those frequencies are being interfered with in order to stop us evolving to this next level of consciousness, because a lower frequency type of being has infiltrated this simulation and has had control of it for a long time
Mm.
and are using mind control, mind manipulation, predictive programming, subliminal messages to imprint codes into our consciousness that project fear and the lower vibration energies, hate and stuff like that. They call it loosh, that they feed off. They need that to maintain control. So for the conspiracy people out there, a lot of the conspiracy stuff is true, but we also need to understand that they're fighting for their lives
Mm.
as well. And it kind of takes you out of that fear and that anger towards what's going on. So, when you become neutral, you can see that we're trying to pull the light in and they're trying to hold on to the dark to keep control. So what's happening is we're moving into a future where consciousness is being separated within humanity, and there is a negative timeline and a positive timeline going on for the people that stay in duality, and then there's people moving into neutral in the middle, which are holding the best and highest timeline for everyone concerned, and that includes humans, the animal, the planet, the universe, and so on. People are probably aware there's a lot of news at the moment about trying to save the beagles and the animal cruelty that's going on the planet. Well, I have a group that I work with, and for one, we've been working on removing animal cruelty from the planet, and then we're now seeing that manifesting across social media. People are fighting, to release these animals and to stop animal testing. It's not animal testing, and there's a word that sounds, oh, it's animal testing so that your children don't get shampoo burning their eyeballs, when what's really happening is vile, evil animal abuse. That's the truth behind animal testing. It's not necessary. We don't need to test on animals because most of the products are not necessary if people get into complementary healthcare in the first place. So there's a lot of things out there not even needed. So how it's used, media, screens act as a portal for frequencies to come into our consciousness, into our energy field, into our chakra system, our energetic vortexes that run through our body, that imprint codes into our consciousness that then project into our reality. So let's, for example, if you're watching a lot of war movies and the kids are playing these war games in their bedroom, guess what gets churned back up into reality sphere? We've got war in Ukraine, Russia, and all this stuff going on at the moment. And this is that projection being shown to us as well. So we're moving into a higher frequency, which means that we need to delete these old programs in our system in order to project a better world, fair world, none of this animal abuse. More people are becoming vegan because they realize the factory farms are, again, places of abuse. And it's been hidden for a long time, but there's a lot of people that have gone into these places with hidden cameras and are showing the world what really goes on in there. So what happens when we watch the news is anyone who's watched 6 o'clock news, 9 o'clock news, whatever time it is, most of it's bad news. That's an agenda to imprint fear and anger into our frequencies, into the codes in our frequency, and to create a negative future projection so that they can maintain control. And by they, we're talking about less than 1%. There's a very small group of people that have got control and pretty much own every corporation and the healthcare system, the research centres, the education system, industrial military complex, and all of these things. They're in charge of all of it. They've got the wealth, and they control the narrative, and they control what's coming through the music industry, the film industry, radio, education, healthcare, and so on. So what happens is there's a documentary being released recently. I'm not sure if it's the right thing to say the name of it because you can pick up negative stuff by watching it, but I will explain what's going on in it. There's a guy that's made a documentary that talks about he shows it's on something like America's Got Talent or something like that, The Voice, one of those. And he before he comes out, he's a mind expert, so mind reader. Before he comes out on that program, there is a few minutes video about the person. Just like a bio, a video bio. And in the video bio, there were subliminal messages that the audience didn't know about. So when he was on stage, everyone had a piece of paper and they were asked to draw an image on that piece of paper. First of all, he did it to the panel of 4 people, and then he asked them to show the piece of paper, and they'd all drawn a very childlike image of the sun, so a circle with lines coming out of it. And he turned his piece of paper over, and it was exactly the same image. Well, then they got the audience to do it, and I don't know how many people in the audience, hundreds, possibly 1,000. Pretty much all of them had drawn the sun, and everyone was thinking, wow, this guy really is a mind control expert. And then he said, now I'm going to show you how I did it. So they went back to the original video, and in that video, there were 4 or 5 sun pictures in the background. One was on a beer mat, one was on a billboard behind him, one was on a t-shirt or something like that. Another one had sunny California in the background and a picture of the sun. So obviously his intention was for the sun images to be imprinted into the consciousness of the people watching the video without them realizing it. That's what a subliminal message is, and there's always an intention behind it. They're not just put there with no intention. Intention creates programming in your consciousness. So this is why people teach, you to set your intentions for the day when you wake up in the morning, that I intend to have a lovely, happy day, new clients coming in, I'm going to get to work without being in a traffic jam, whatever it is you need for your day. Intentions basically set a precedence for your day. So the people were shocked to realize just how easy that was done to them. And he's made a new video, the recent one. People went to a movie cinema to watch the movie Ocean's 11, which is quite an exciting movie. I've seen it. I've watched a lot of movies in my time, and I'm very aware of the subliminal messages, but I use it as what's in my consciousness over the years so that I can switch those programs off. So in this one, prior to the movie starting, and by the way, he said that you only need between 2 and 5 repetitions to program the subconscious mind, to program, them to choose the picture of the sun. And in this one, there were three images, like fairly black and white, blurry images before the movie started, where people said, just forget it. You're going to forget this. I've forgotten that. Three times. And when people were coming out of the cinema, he was asking people, what was the movie about? And they were just dumb, struck dumb. One girl
I
said,
saw that
I've got
video. The woman who basically looks like she was horrified.
no idea what she just spent 2 hours watching. So that's a subliminal message. Subliminal message are in music. So, for example, if you think about Christmas, you go in shopping, there's songs in the background saying, I wish it was Christmas every day, which is about materialism and shopping. And wishes go into your Akashic record, which is basically your library of your consciousness for every lifetime. Again, everything that goes in there projects into reality. So it's mind manipulation um, to a group, and there are different levels on it. I just want to ask you, Laura, because I'll do all the talking. You mentioned the levels earlier. So what levels are you aware of?
First of all, I think the most basic one is watching television. When you're in a
Hmm.
theta, when you get into this meditative theta state, you just do. With people that are just blindly watching television, and it's you're just getting, first of all, you're already in the state to basically be programmed. That's just the way it
Hmm.
is. It's like when a child, from birth to 7 years old, our brain is naturally in that state. That's when we're basically learning how to be a human, and that's when we
Hmm.
get all of, we get imprinted. Same thing happens when you're sitting in front of a TV for a long time and you're getting whatever messages, and then there's the whatever you're watching, and then there's of course the advertising, which is very deliberately designed to make you sway a certain way. Then there's watching the news, which many people have heard of Project Mockingbird. If you don't know what that is, it's basically you can look at maybe five different channels at the same time. They're saying the exact same words verbatim. So there's a usually huge companies that own, the very few the TV stations, and they're given the same information. So we're just told this and we believe. Well, nothing I want to talk about is authority and how we're basically brainwashed to believe authority. So oh, it's the news, it must be real, it must be true. So that gets imprinted. So same thing with doctors, same thing with government. We brainwash from a very young age to believe that authority has truth. So anything that's coming from a doctor tells you certain thing, we're now conditioned to believe that that's true. Same thing with the
Hmm.
government, which actually the word
Hmm.
government means not mind control.
Correct.
If you break it down. And of course, you mentioned social media, which has gotten so sophisticated. And I want you to share in a minute about how it's actually affecting us, because I think this is really going to blow people's minds.
Hmm.
But you said something really important before, and I really want to go back, because if I were listening to this for the first time, which I'm not, because I'm familiar with basically we speak a lot. I'm familiar with a lot of most of what you're saying. But if I was listening to this for the first time, the thing that really stuck out is, how do I become neutral about something where everything around us in society is telling us pick a side or feel a certain way about something? And especially if you care, if you really care about something, you're going to be on this side. So neutrality is the last thing, quote unquote, they want you to be, is no, pick a side. And again, that's duality.
Hmm.
How does somebody learn to become neutral?
Okay, good question. So basically, everything we're looking at it from a dual light and dark perspective in general. We're born into this duality. When you start to see things and start to judge them as dark or fear or, something like that, you've gone into duality and there's a trigger within you. There's a charge in your system, which your higher consciousness is letting you know, look into this further because it's affecting you. You're not being neutral towards it. So it could be that you've got anger in your system, you've got racism in your system, you've got fear in your system, jealousy, something like that. These are all negative codes within your consciousness, in your frequency bandwidth, for example, that you need to work on and bring back into neutral. So you're basically owning what you're feeling. It's okay to be angry, by the way, and feel, but it's going into owning that anger, feeling this anger, and like, where does this come from? Where's the root cause of this? And you can sun gaze for up to an hour after sunrise. So that's sitting looking at the sun. So let's say the sun rises at 6 a.m. Between 6 and 7 a.m., you can go and sit, in the garden, look into the sun, and sit with the things that have been bothering you, where the charge is coming from, and ask the sun to burn that out of your consciousness, neutralize it for you. And the same thing can happen. Let's say the sun sets at 9 o'clock in the evening, between 8 and 9 in the evening. So an hour before in the evening and an hour after in the morning. So you can heal your codes, recode, reprogram yourself for free by using the sun. And that's an easy way to do it. So just bringing that into that space of stillness and peace where you can look at it and be aware of it, but it's not making you angry anymore. It's
Right.
not, having a charge, electrical charge in your system. Those charges are there from your higher consciousness to let you know there's something you need to heal in you here. And that's why these things are brought into our life, because it's a projection of what's inside us.
Right. And I think it's really important to say being neutral does not mean lack of caring because
Exactly.
people think, and that's first of all, that's a program right there that we have to worry about somebody or I have to feel this way about this because otherwise it shows I don't care. So it's not neutrality is not apathy. There's a
Mm.
big difference there, and you can still really care about, like you were talking about the Beagles, perfect example. You can care about that, but also not be like, oh my God, I have to go out and protest and I have to go do all these things. But you can feel neutral towards, okay, this thing is happening, right? We know this is happening. This is not a good thing, but I can look at this thing and not feel a charge in my body
Yeah.
about around it.
Well, the thing, the Beagles is a good example because there are a lot of people that have made a difference from going out there and protesting, and some of the people have broken into the, research centres that are being made, by the way, infrastructures in the UK that are now protected like they would be a government building. People are being arrested just for trespass. Um, so, hats off to those people. They've got activism in their system and they feel they're doing the right thing. And if they're helping the animals, great. But the root cause of it is internal cruelty within our own being, and the greed and materialism for the items that we want to purchase that these animals are being tested on for. So that, there's a whole other area of this, and the greed of the people that are making the products, whether it's chemicals, shampoos, whether it's perfumes, whether it's medication, the greed of them, that they're more, and it comes under the guise of these things are for you, for your benefit.
Mhm.
I don't want any of them. I don't want anything that's tested on animals at all. I even feel guilty having milk if it's not organic these days, and even organic
I know.
animal stuff. So I've been vegetarian for 19 years, and there was a short period in that where I was pescatarian because my body was really needed the fish and the oils. But the change happened, and now I couldn't even think about doing it because I can feel the sentience. Even fish are sentient beings. We've been taught that they're not, but they are. Everything is sentient, everything is consciousness. But once you've cleared that out, that anger and the frustration and so on, you see it for what it is. You know that the people that are involved in this have work to do. The activism is making a difference, but long term, we have to get animal cruelty out of our consciousness, out of our field. Those codes need to be deleted. And by that, I mean, it doesn't mean that we've been mean to animals in this life. We may have in another life. We may be, doing it in a multidimensional life. It may be our ancestors have been cruel to animals and it's passed down intergenerationally. Or even watching animal abuse on a screen is absorbed into your system
Mhm.
as well. So all of these things leave memories and imprints in the consciousness of the field of the mass consciousness. And that's what we're living in, this movie that is being created by the majority, a good majority of us. And there is a mathematical equation. People talk about the Maharishi effect in that, which is just under 9,000 people. And this is why these groups that have had the shadow control of, the mind manipulation and everything else that's going on, and are involved in making the money for these cruel things that are happening. And these lies, we'll talk about what's gone on with the moon landing in a minute, more manipulation, are, they're losing control. So it's even more severe now than it used to be, because people like us are awake and we are fighting back. And I talk to everyone about, when you watch a screen, put protection around it. Imagine those disco balls with all the little mirrors on the outside, but the mirrors are on the inside, and you're sending it, what's coming out of the screen, the subliminal message, is back to source to be transmuted and turned back to neutrality, and making a statement: I intend to observe and not absorb on any level of consciousness, which puts a shield up.
Mm-hmm.
But that shield will only last a certain amount of time. I've been doing this for years. If I watch anything on screens for more than 2 hours, it starts creeping in, because you're forming an energetic bridge to it after a certain amount of time. So it's a daily routine, particularly for people like us that work on the internet and need our screens, for our jobs and stuff like that, to get into a practice of protecting yourself, and realizing that looking at a TV screen, a computer screen, a phone screen, you're looking through a portal in a simulation into a timeline. So if you're obsessed with watching what's going on, in the war zone, you're pulling more and more war and that grief and that fear and that angst into your own field, and that's going to start projecting in your reality. So same with horror films, same with violence and all this.
Same with music.
Sex.
That's their frequency of
Yeah.
music, and that's really big because music frequency is very, you can feel it. You can, if you can, there's certain music that's going to make you feel, agitated and violent even.
Yeah,
Forget even the
absolutely.
lyrics, just the frequency of the music itself, and people plugged in all day long.
Yeah,
They're listening to
absolutely.
stuff.
And the frequency of the music was set to 440 instead of 432. I think it was in 1930 time, by a certain institute beginning with R. And that frequency closes the heart chakra down. It affects the heart chakra in a negative way. And the whole point of raising your frequency is so that your heart releases the fear, releases the jealousy, releases the sadness, the grief, the anger, and all the negative things that are keeping it functioning on an energetic level at a lower frequency, so that we can bring more love, more joy, more purity into our lives. And that is the projection of the world we're going to experience around us. Now, there is a documentary. I just wanted to say as well, when you were talking about, they say, give me the boy till he's 7 and I'll show you the man.
Mhm.
That's because up to the age of 7 years old, we're in theta brainwave frequency. Now, theta is where we take our clients to go into their access to subconscious to release negative programming in there. It's the meditative state of consciousness, and that's where children are up till the age of 7. So what a child is told up until that age is hardwired into their system and affects them for the rest of their life. That's why a lot of therapists will talk to people about, well, how was your childhood? Particularly how was that first kind of um, section of your childhood between the ages of 7, 8, and 8. We go through child soul braiding, which is a level up, and that's usually when kids find out Santa Claus isn't real. So what they've learned for the first 7 years of their life that their parents are liars
Hmm.
because of it. So this is important that people understand that. And it's teaching children to lie, and people don't even realize it. So there's all this going on constantly, like you say, music industry, the lyrics, repetition programs the subconscious mind. So all the lyrics people are singing as they're going to work in their car, if you're driving to work, you're on the freeway, for example, we've all done it. You think, where did that hour go? Especially like if you've got cruise control, which I've got. You click into cruise control and you're just sailing along, listening to your music in theta brainwave frequency. So it's a hypnotic state, listening to the radio, listening to the advertising, listening to music, whatever lyrics you're singing are being programmed into your subconscious. that's going to be projected into your reality.
Well, here's something also that's really, I mean, everyone's heard of like the, what do they call it, the earworm or whatever. So I will hear a piece of music, like whether it be like, that they're popular trending, music that goes on social media. So whether it's on TikTok or it's a trending, so it'll be a short clip of a song. I can't get it out of my head. It literally makes me
It sticks.
crazy, right? But that's one thing. And then there could be a song that I heard that I know well, right? So I maybe it's I'm in the car and I'm listening to it and I'll hear it and then all of a sudden I'm trying to fall asleep and I keep hearing the sing over and over and I'm trying to stop it and I can't stop it. And listen, I we both know how the subconscious works. We do it day in and day out and I'm like, okay, why is this plugged in so much and why can't I get rid of it? So that's when you're conscious of it. Imagine all the times you're not conscious, it's getting in there.
Yeah,
And it's
absolutely.
affecting your decisions. It's affecting how you do things. And what I wanted to mention to kind of, I don't want to say bring it down to 3D, but a lot of what you're saying is like on this higher energetic level and why we're being programmed, from, basically the consciousness level. If we look at it, even from just like I'm going to say, bringing it down to earth a little bit, the collective, the population is easier to control
Hmm.
when they are sick, when they're broke, when they're disempowered, when they're depressed. So you can manipulate them, you can control them, you can lie to them, you can do all these things. Poverty programming is also huge. Look at
Hmm.
all the ways we are told, oh, money doesn't grow on trees, or what's the expression? I
The
can't even
root,
think of
the
it.
money is the
Yes,
root of all evil.
it's the root of all evil. Meanwhile, it's the love of money, so it's misstated, but it's so much about poverty mentality, and then that gets into our system, and then we're kept a certain way. So even like from a just controlling the population, it's so much
Hmm.
easier if people are disempowered, and it's that's what I'm saying is that it happens all over. And then there's a kind of like the higher consciousness level ways that we're being affected and why we are to keep us from kind of remembering and all what's been actually been programmed previously. And what's also interesting is that the people that are most kind of resistant to, oh, I can't be mind controlled. I
The
can't.
easiest
They're
to
actually the
control.
easiest because, first of all,
Yeah.
that's their ego and that's their conscious mind saying, oh, I'm not mind controlled. They're actually the ones that aren't as discerning. How does that feel when I listen to this? How does that feel when I view this? Right?
Hmm.
Because they've decided that they're not being controlled. Therefore, they're even less aware of it than those that are, okay, that's a possibility. Let me pay attention and see how I feel after viewing this thing or so forth, which is actually really interesting when you look at it that way.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So, as you know, I tend to take things into the higher level of consciousness because I've got an awareness of it and I'm able to see the imprints that look like little pieces of wire mesh. Everything, anyone out there that doesn't know about psilocybin, what they call magic mushrooms, LSD, that kind of stuff, ayahuasca, people that have taken those plant medicines that we've been mind controlled to believe are drugs, which actually expand the consciousness and allow people to see the stuff. Um, all of these things show people that reality is a projection of consciousness and that it's actually like string theory, grids of light, waves of light. And people, once they've had a journey like that, they're changed for life because they understand that what the projection is. It's a field of consciousness. It's not solid. It's an illusion based on the programming within our system. So I began to notice it. I'm probably going back 20 years ago now, not far off that, 18 years ago for sure, when I started to get thoughts coming into my mind and I thought, that's not mine. I didn't, where's that coming from? I was just very aware. And I've been clairvoyant my whole life. Shut it down when I was at school, then opened it up again in my mid 30s. And I started to see like little red pyramids around the pineal gland in the brain. Well, the pineal gland is the brain is the gland that is the astral doorway into other dimensional realms. So that's where people go to astral project, You know, our dreams come through on that level of consciousness. We've all got vision. People see stuff in their dreams. Some see color, some see black and white. If you see color, you're in a higher level of consciousness, for example. So these things come out the screen. They look like little meshes. So it started off with the red triangles. So these things are energetic. You can only see them if you're clairvoyant. I started teaching my students about them, and they distort. They're a filter that distorts your perception, and particularly if you're giving readings to people. I used to do it and stopped doing it in 2016 because of it. They distort the messages that people are getting. And you know, sorry, readers out there, but if you're not clearing these things, you're being used to give people false information, and that's just the way it is, and that's across the board. One of the rules of the universe, spiritual rules of the universe, is that in order to do something to somebody, you have to tell them you're doing it to
Right.
them.
Right.
So this is like in movies. There was a TV series out years ago where they said we've got all the psychics under control. They're all being mind controlled to, you know, tell particularly certain people that are here and feel that they're here to help humanity move forward, that they're on some kind of mission, which is also a bit ego-y. That, you know, they're being targeted, and what that people call themselves light workers and star seeds are being targeted in particular to lead their followers down the wrong path, or just to get them to be on the lives. I stopped using live on Instagram because I realized that it was easier for not just the mind control imprints, but the AI is another problem on top of that now, coming in through the screen. Remember, the screen is a portal into another reality space, into another part of the simulation that we live in. And how they're imprinting into people's consciousness. So if you're listening to politics, if you're listening to the news, for example, an imprint will come out that looks like a little square sticking plaster or stamp that is like grids of light that will go into your ears. So what that looks like to clairvoyance is looks like a little snake coming out the screen. People talk about people being snaky, and they always associate snake with the demons and devil and the Bible, and that's all been created. So they do look like snakes going into the ear. So they're distorting. People will now be listening to the news and what they're being programmed to listen to rather than listening to the truth that's out there, distorts what people are hearing. They can go into the eyes and they look like contact lenses, little green meshes of contact lenses. So people are seeing an overlay on the truth as well. So it's distorting their vision.
When
And
these
this
go in,
is,
let me just ask you a question, because about all of these things, when they go in, or do they stay in, or do they wear off, or
they stay in unless you consciously take them out. And that's
so
what I teach.
you can keep getting more. They can
Yeah.
keep basically infiltrating
Yeah. This
everything.
has been going on in my life for over 20 years, well, it's nearly 20 years. And I still have not found a way to erase them completely unless I completely stay off a screen. And I can't do that. It's my job. I need my phone. I need to work on Zoom and so on and so forth. So the screens are portals, and they're being used, you know, with intent to affect people and slow them down, because the more of us that move up into this higher bandwidth, there's a war on this planet between light and dark. And they don't want people raising themselves up, because that means the shadow aspects they're losing control of the population. So the health is being used now as a weapon. We know that from what's happened over the last few years. We don't want, today's not about that. It's a whole other subject matter, but people at home are going to know what we mean when we say that. It's been proven now. You know, there's a couple of doctors. One of them is the second most published in writing doctor on the planet, medical doctor, immunologist, and virologist, saying that certain armed darts are weapons of mass destruction, basically, yeah, and that they're all bad. But he's retired now, so that, you know, the threats to take the license are no longer having an effect. This information is getting out into the world. So we've been brainwashed with health, that we need, you know, we need medicines for this, which just control symptoms and don't actually go into the root cause of the problem. Education system, 90%, at least 90% left brain, which is the logistical side of the brain. they're the ones that are the super clever ones that think they can't be controlled, and they can because they haven't got the right brain, the female brain, the intuitive aspect, creative aspect that allows them to feel the subliminal messages in movies. And there was one I wanted.
Let's stay on education for a minute because I think it's
Okay.
really, really important and something that it's another thing also that people take for granted that the experts know the curriculum that your child needs. Who even stops to think about, like you said, they're not being taught life skills. They're not being taught intuition. They're not being taught anything that is going to empower them to actually be sovereign, to actually have the basically the potential for the best life they can have. It's so carefully curated so that you're spewed information that most likely you're never going to use in your life. And when you think
Hmm.
about the mathematics, when you think about even history, which has been distorted, you're just
Yeah.
given, and you're also actually the way it's structured, you're indoors, you're not getting sunlight, kids are not out there running around doing what they're doing. They're being groomed again to brainwashed to go work in the system, the 9 to 5 job.
Yes, most of them are. Exactly. That's what's going on. And it's an agenda because they need the little
They
workarounds.
need the workers.
Yeah, they need the little workarounds. And the shutting down of the female, the right brain also it disempowers because your intuition is not functioning at the higher level. And plus, we are mind, body, and spirit, and we're not being taught how to take care of our spirit, which is your energy field,
Mm.
your soul and your spirit. So we move from physical healthcare to all mind body connection. So that was a little bit of a step up, the psychological aspect of it. But then even that, it's like just keep coming back every 2 weeks and ching, ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. Whereas you and I get into the root cause, it's like we want to get people okay and out there as soon as possible because that's what feeds our spirit is, helping people and lifting them up. So it's all part of the control system of the darker shadow aspect of the simulation. There is overlay programs that have been put in that are trapping people in this simulation on this reincarnation trap and cycle, coming back in more trauma on top of trauma and just keeps it going. You come in, you've got trauma memories in your system that projects into reality. Universe is set up to bring you more trauma and so on and so forth. So that negative cycle, what's happening? Some of us are learning to break down that overlay and delete those programs in our simulation, raise our frequency and project in a better simulation. So there was something else I wanted to share. There is a documentary, and I was trying to share this with my partner who is not on this level. I found a documentary on Tubi called Quantum Physics. And I thought, great, watched it. Really good, explains all about the observer effect. And if you haven't seen the observer effect, guys, check it out on YouTube because it explains what we're talking about. Reality doesn't exist unless you're observing it
Hmm.
because it's a projection. You're the projector, and everything else is a holographic thing that this feeling we feel as solid because our sensory perception, we've got sight, hearing, taste, touch. But if you took them away, what have you got? Just the void of consciousness. It's all gone. So it explains it on a scientific level. And the movie explains it very well. And it was a doctor, scientist explaining it. So, people listen to doctors because we're taught to listen to the professionals and the people in authority. And I noticed in it, and I mentioned it to my partner. We were talking to our friend last night at dinner. I said, did you notice a few months back when we watched that documentary that a picture of a red demon devil kept popping up, flashing on the screen throughout the documentary? Nothing to do with what was being said in the commentary or by the narrator. And he said, no, I didn't notice it. So the other thing that I've noticed, these things going into the ears of men is to block out truth.
Mm.
So the men are being held back. This development, empowerment, enlightenment that's happening en masse, the women are leading the way. I would say 9 out of 10 people that have raised themselves up are women, maybe 15% are men. And they're being targeted to
Mm.
not want to listen to the truth, to not want to listen to women. these things that are going into their ears are coded programs that affect their perception. Listen to authority, stick to the rules, do as you're told.
Don't
Don't listen to,
question. Don't
yeah,
question.
yeah, obey.
Who are
There's
you
that
to
old,
yeah, obey? Who are you to question?
yeah, remember that old movie, They're Here or They're Live or
They
something?
live.
What was it? They Live, that's it. When he put on the glasses and you could see all the billboards were obey and stuff like that. It's the same kind of thing. Subliminal stuff going in. So the clever thing about subliminal messages is the intention behind them is that people can't see them,
Hmm.
you know. So obviously my partner couldn't see it. I was like, boom, subliminal message every time. Like every time. It's like, God, there's that devil again. But I always put protection around the screen before I watch these things. So it didn't. So what's being projected there? Satan is being projected there into the subconscious. Now, if we look at the religious aspect of subliminal messages, people have been taught religion, black and white, good and evil, God and Satan, and that is also a trap because you can't have one without the other.
Right.
And it keeps the satanic stuff alive. You've got all this satanic Hollywood, you've got this, trafficking of human beings, which is now the most profitable business on the planet. And it's because of those things that are being projected into people's consciousness in the guise of education, in the guise of religion, in the guise of everything else that's going on through lyrics in songs. There's some really nasty song lyrics out there, calling women bitches and beat them up, slap them up, and all this stuff. Programming that into the consciousness, there's more violence towards women than ever before, you
Also,
know.
once you're aware of it, that this exists, it's like you can't unsee it. It's like
Correct.
you look at certain award shows, you look at halftime shows, you look at the dress of certain, I mean, I was just saw some from the recent Met Gala, and you look at what they're wearing, and it's all over the place. And once you're aware
Yeah,
of it, you can't not see it. You see how
exactly.
everything is manipulation. And
Yeah.
it may sound like, oh, doom and gloom. Well, oh, you're taking the fun out of everything. No, not really, but having the
Just,
awareness that it's there, that there's
yeah,
a certain image, there's a certain feeling that is intended for you to get from it,
yeah.
then you can just kind of choose like how you look at it. Like you're saying, put protection up, observe and don't absorb. Like just be aware that you don't know necessarily what's behind the screen, literally.
Well, I'm being super, super aware of what your children are watching. People have been like they've been mind manipulated to say your child is safer in their bedroom on the computer than playing football
Mhm.
in the field, down the street. Um, for a reason, because they want the kids on the computer so that they can mind control the adults of the future, manipulate what's going into their subconscious. I mean, if you look at porn, for example, which is kids are getting hold of this stuff's nasty, ruins their sex life because those images are in their mind. I met someone actually who was a psychologist who was 36, and she said she hadn't had sex with her husband for 8 years because she learned about sex watching porn, and he was quite a pure soul that had never seen anything like that. And she's screaming like some porn star, and he wants to make love, and he's like, get off.
Usually it's the other way
Uh,
around. That's interesting.
yeah, yeah,
Usually it's the
it's
man
not
who
just,
watches the porn.
yeah. And this woman was a psychologist. So it's not the reason I use that example, it's not just men that watch porn, it's more and more women are being drawn into it. And what happens again, these imprints in the form of snaky energies or demonic, all of these grids or programs. If you look at your computer, what you see on the screen is a visual image that's basically made of like zeros and ones, for want of a description, for programming. Invisible programming is creating this image you're looking at the moment and everything around you. So these imprints are going in through porn into the base energy center in the body, which stimulate the sexual drive. And I need a bit more. It's like a hit. That entity is like, go and watch a bit more, go and watch a bit. And it's the same with alcohol, drugs, shopping, any kind of addiction is always entity based in the system. These programs have gone in and they're driving the central processing unit of that person's consciousness to go and get more, because the entity needs it to survive. If it's not getting its fix, it's going to, dissolve, and it's going to get angry. I've worked with people before, that have got addictions, and that anger comes through, tantrum, I've got to have it, I want it now, and start getting violent. That's not the person getting violent, that's the entity in the person getting violent and using them as a host. And I'll give you an example. You'll hear people say that when they do stupid things when they're drunk. I don't know what possessed me to do that last night. That's literally what's happening. Any ghosts or entities or anything like that, and they do exist because they've been created, demons been created in movies, in the Bible, therefore those programs exist in the simulation. They're everywhere, and the more you've got in you, the more you're going to experience in your life. And it's not that you're a bad person because these are in your system. It's like fleas. You've picked them up somewhere, whether it was through trauma, whether it was through fear, whether it was through listening to music, watching movies. I used to love horror movies when I was a kid. And then as an adult, I've had to clean all that stuff out of my system. Now I can't even watch fighting on, on a movie. I'm not letting that in. I don't want to watch it. So what we need to do is to clean ourselves out. And the best way to do that, the easiest and cheapest way to do that, we share with people on our podcast, our other podcast, is to sun gaze. And fasting is another way of cleansing your system as well, because the physical parasites are being created by energetic parasites. The energy is the software in the machine that creates the physical. So if you start to clean out the energetic parasites and do a physical parasite cleanse, you're raising your frequency tremendously, and you're projecting a better reality for yourself as a result. And not just you, everyone around you begins to change, because they're a part of your holographic experience. They're a part of your simulation, projection of you. So we can look at people and, rather than judging what we're seeing in them, we're seeing a projection of something in us. We know what, use people as a mirror of what you need to work on.
Mm.
If you're out and you're seeing angry people all day, heal your own anger. If you're seeing people, we've got a lot of people around you that have got addictions, what are you addicted to?
So I think it's also really important to look at how we're all energy and everything is
Mm-hmm.
energy, right? So anything that you're putting into your system is also going to affect how you're able to handle this mind control, this manipulation, and even food that is from a lower frequency food is also going to affect. You're not going to feel as good. Therefore, you're going to be so much easier to manipulate. Lack of sleep, or all these things energetically are also going to make you more prone to be able to be manipulated and mind controlled. So
Yeah.
you kind of like go through your day and think about that, like, okay, I'm grounding myself, I'm sun gazing, or I'm drinking pure water, like whatever it is, all that is going to make you actually just have basically more discernment as
Mm-hmm.
to what you will tolerate.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, it does go even into a much deeper level, and that, we talk on our first podcast, Talking Timelines, we talked about 6 different potential timelines. One of those was linked into complete mind control and totalitarianism, and mandatory microchipping of humans, and the transhumanism, and all of that other stuff. And I read a book that was about MK Ultra mind control, that said the first targeting starts actually in the womb with
Mm.
the scans they do, ultrasounds.
Ultrasound.
That's the first trauma a child experiences. Those ultrasounds are not good for babies in the womb. So there are certain people targeted that can be easily manipulated, brought into that system, completely mind controlled, turned, so they're bringing these entities in on purpose and turning them into people that can be controlled by a phone call and a one word that comes through the phone. And I believe these are being used to by assassins and shooters, and these crazy people that are going into schools with with guns and killing children and stuff like that. I don't think it's just random. My intuition tells me it's not random, that it's usually, if you look into what bills or executive orders or whatever are going through round about the time that there's a really terrible traumatic event like that, something's trying to be sneaked through
Hmm.
that's disempowering the people. So look into that. Um, So, there's that side of it, and I learned about the different multi layers to the subconscious where these entities can be brought in and hidden in the subconscious. And they've made movies about it. That movie Split about the psycho in there, that was a schizophrenic that went from being, one minute the guy was a woman, dressed as a woman, then he was a little boy, and then he was a beast, the same person. It was schizophrenia. These are different programs in the system of, the people. So schizophrenia, bipolar, all this kind of stuff are linked into these programs in the subconscious mind that have opened and created other doorways where there's a lot of darkness and shadow imprints gone in and are manipulating the way people behave. So the frequencies we're under attack all the time, even our clothes. They're making clothes out of plastic now. So the microplastics are being absorbed into your body, which drags your frequency down and stuff like that. Everything's about frequency. The purer you are, the more powerful you are.
Right.
One pure, enlightened person can override 100,000 alcoholics, you know.
Let's talk about predictive programming for a minute because we really didn't touch on that, and it is so
Okay.
prevalent and so important. So basically, you can always look back in history and see, wow, isn't that interesting? So you could look, Hollywood's a perfect example of this. So there's a movie put out, whether it's some disaster, it's some horrific illness, it's something that, and people are fascinated. Oh my God, this is, I mean, they're basically a form of horror movies, most of them,
Yeah.
right? So we're watching this. So it's doing a couple of things. One, it's desensitizing you to having this, oh my God, this horrible thing. It's making it more normal. And it's
Hmm.
also it's planting it in the subconscious of this is actually a potential. This is a possibility. So what
Hmm.
happens is when the actual event, which many of these events, I hate to tell people if this is the first time you're hearing this, they're actually created. They're called psyops. They're psychological
Yeah.
operations that are created. So and all of a sudden this happens, and it was already in your subconscious. You've seen this movie 10 years ago. You saw this movie 5 years ago of this thing
Mm.
actually happening. So it's like, the believability of it, that it's
Yeah.
really happening and not something that was artificially created. And it is enormous, this issue
Hmm.
of predictive programming. What are your thoughts on that? Anything you want to add to
Well, you said that, when we watch them, that it puts it into your subconscious mind as a possibility. Actually puts it into your subconscious mind as real.
is real? And it's more like a probability.
A probability. That's what predictive programming is. So the more people that take that into their subconscious mind, we have to understand that the subconscious is a bit like an innocent, 6-year-old child. Whatever it sees, it will take an image and it will turn it sideways, upside down, back to front, and it will absorb it on every different level. And there's lots of information out there about the Disney movies and the subliminal messages in those movies of pictures of penises and people having sex in the background of these children's movies. And, we're imprinting children at a very early age, for example. So what's absorbed is taken in as a program, and your subconscious mind doesn't determine, oh, well, that's just a movie. It takes it in as real. It's a
Right. It's
program.
like it's very literal. It's like a computer being programmed.
Exactly. So that's what predictive programming is. And then if you look it up on something like Wikipedia, and notice a lot I laugh when I say that. Um, if you want to find the untruth, there's the place to go. It will say that this is a conspiracy theory
Of course.
thing that the government are can't the government, which means control mind,
Mind control.
um are that we're delusional. Well, if you understand anything about subconscious mind, and this is why I studied it. I did study psychology, but not to a degree level. And my lecturer was like, "Oh, you're going into advertising." I was like, "Hell no, I'm going into helping people, avoid what you're doing to
Exactly.
them."
Exactly.
And so, what's going on there is the subconscious mind it is basically like putting a program on your computer. And that's what's going to be, that's predictive programming into your consciousness. That's what, if you can get the masses doing it, that's what they're going to, produce, project into reality. There are movies out there that, I mean, I watched years ago. There's a movie called Kingsman. And in that movie, there are some like really, um, there's this cool kid that his dad's friend is a spy for the government and he's got superpowers, higher heightened perspective powers. And basically in the movie they give everyone a free microchip that's going to give you free internet and free cell phone and da 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 da. And they're all lining up for it like sheep.
That's not so far away.
Exactly. And then what happens? The billionaire guy, that's created these things, it's about depopulation, right? And in the end, towards the end of the movie, they're in church and they're shooting each other, cutting one another's heads off because they turned the frequency up on the implant
Mm.
that was in, that puts them into, I think it's something like 10.7 hertz. Don't quote me on that, but that causes rioting.
Wow.
Okay, so this isn't just about an implant going into your consciousness. I mean, I really like it, completely freaks me out, this Neuralink thing going into people's brains. Um, I think there's other ways. Augmented reality can repair stuff like psychic, surgery. I think there's other ways of using technology that is not as invasive, that
Exactly.
we haven't gone down that route yet. Um, these things are being put into the mass consciousness because the negative control is the shadow. That's the future they want because that's the control. They can control the people if they go down that transhumanism timeline. It's not the timeline we're going down. So you've got that going on. There's another one called the Circle. And in the Circle, everyone had to get up and they had to have their arm dart every day, which switched off all of their emotions. And they said what somebody had twins and they killed one of the babies. They injected into its brain and put it to sleep. And they would call it that child transitioned when really they were euthanizing them.
Wow.
And it's everyone lives in this community in a circle, and there was Kurt Russell played the librarian. He had all the books of the wars and the truth and the nastiness that's gone on in the world. And they picked this young lad out who was a, triple A student to take over from Kurt Russell's job. And Kurt shows him by touching him, he transposes the war and the nastiness of the world outside of this circle. There's no money. Everyone's got access to golf and bikes and, entertainment. It's all controlled. And basically, I won't, spoiler alert, the kid's like, I'm not having this, and runs outside the circle and it goes from black and white to color and they all start to escape it. So all of these things, I watch them, I'm like, wow, that was just before what happened in 2020 or
Mhm.
around about that time. This is preparing people for a timeline of complete control.
Hmm.
Because it's not just putting something into your body that, oh, well, we're going to be able to monitor your bioenergetics
Right.
or whatever and
Right.
like tell you if you're going to get cancer. Absolute twaddle.
Hmm.
What it's going to do, it's going to control your blood, your blood pressure. It's going to control your endocrine system. It's going to control your thought processes. It's going to control your dreams, which is another thing that's predictive programming. There's a lot of that going on at the moment. People are having weird dreams. I'm having people coming to me, nice, decent people saying, I'm having these weird sexual dreams. That's the propagation of an implant in your
Hmm.
consciousness that is being manipulated to drag you down into your base chakra through imprinting sexual dreams, into your consciousness while you're asleep. Because while you're sleeping, what you're dreaming about is creating memories.
Hmm.
You know, I teach my students when you go to bed, set your intention of what you want to dream about. Don't just set your intention when you wake up in the morning. Set your intention you're going to have a peaceful sleep in the void, in your sleep pod. Nothing's going to bother you. Nothing's coming in, if that's what you want. Or dream about having success in your business. Whatever you want to dream about, set your precedents, before you go to sleep. Close the channels to everything else Imagine your phone, laptop, television, shut the door on it. So nothing, nothing's getting in to interfere with you while you're sleeping. And it's like you were saying earlier about the song, repetitive song going in, that's tying you into something. It could be the person that sang the song and the music
Oh,
industry.
it
It's keeping
literally
it.
can make you crazy because you're like,
Yeah.
stop, stop. And the more you try to do it, the more it stays.
Well, this is the next level of the mind manipulation rather than control is the AI coming in. So now people are watching screens, they don't know if it's real or if it's not. AI is getting
Exactly.
better and better and better. And AI is hooking into people, not just little bits and patches coming out the screen. This is now a channel. So there's a bridge to
Hmm.
that AI that's got access to your whole energy field. That can be manipulated. Hot, cold, frightened, anxious. All of these things can be sent through that field of consciousness that they're, calling AI, AGI, super intelligence coming next. So it's moving into a whole other level with the AI stuff as well. And the confusion is part of the agenda because confused people run to the authorities to be taken care of.
Or they're also not, they don't feel empowered in what they're in their belief. Like they they're making a decision about something. They're kind of like, look here, no, look there. And then it also instills fear and confusion. And
Yeah.
so yeah,
Confused
that's a
people are easier to
oh,
control.
very easy. Because they're
If
gonna
you
pick
don't
what
know you're
makes
a,
them feel a little
and
better.
and I also believe that a lot of the transgender stuff is linked into these mind patches going into
Oh, it
particularly
has to be
kids,
because it basically overtakes.
overtakes and tells them you're a girl in a boy's body or you're a boy in a girl's body, you need a sex change. And I'll tell you why I know these things are going on, because when a few years ago I was staying in the middle of a lake somewhere in the winter, 6 months of snow, and I put television on to see what was on television. And I watched a program that was about plastic surgery. And it was all of these people that have had botched surgeries and going, to LA to these particular doctors to get it repaired. And all of a sudden I'm watching it and thinking, I wonder if I need plastic surgery.
Oh
And I was
my
like,
God.
where is that coming from? As soon as it hit me, I was like, where is that coming from? I don't need plastic surgery. I'm in pretty good shape.
Wow.
But I knew this TV series has been made with intent to
To get
send
people.
mind manipulation to convince people they need surgery.
Wow.
So I felt it for myself, you know. So for people out there that are, and I'm hearing more and more people, their teenagers are now wanting sex changes and stuff like that. And in Canada, it's allowed your 12-year-old can go and get a sex change without your permission. 12-year-old, you know,
Yeah, it's really scary. So if we
it
were
is.
so to kind of recap what people can do, we want to leave this on a positive positive
Mm-hmm.
notes, and we shared a lot of kind of somewhat scary information. Sun gazing, super
Mm-hmm.
important. Ground yourself, sun gazing, discernment, like check in with your body. Check
Mm-hmm.
in when you're watching something, listening to something in a situation. If anything is affecting you, you're noticing a change in how you're feeling, you're getting something that's not serving your highest good
Yeah.
and become aware of it, and you're much more apt to be able to actually shift it than once it gets kind of like really embedded and then you're not aware of it. What else would you say to people?
I would say definitely make sure you put protection around your screen. So visualizing a mirror facing the screen with the intention that any subliminal messages coming through the screen is reflected to source. And every day I intend to observe, not absorb anything on any level of consciousness that I see on a screen. Avoid being on screens for more than 2 hours a day. That's a big one. That's my cutoff limit. And I'm on this every day, as you know. I work on myself morning, noon, and night. It's what I do for a living. I help clients, so I have to be a very clear vessel, and I take what I do seriously as a result of that. Plus, I know because I am so clear, anything that pops into my mind, I'm like, that's not my thought. Where's that coming
Mhm.
from? And if you start to hear things, ask, sit quietly, find a quiet space, even if it's in a car park, in your car, just close your eyes, visualize being in the center of your chest and ask, is this mine or is this something in the mass consciousness? You know, you can delete things with intention, but it's really important that you understand. So let's say you've got something coming in, you can delete it and say, no, delete, that's not mine, delete, delete, delete with your intention, and it may delete it, but it
Mhm.
is going to deplete your psychic energy. So if you want to do stuff like that, do it when you're sun gazing, where you're plugged in, visualize the sun's rays coming into your body and going through you and down into the earth. So you're grounding it. Then you're plugged into the source and use that power to delete things that are coming into your consciousness, whether it's fear, anger, jealousy. Neutralize it. Ask the sun to turn it back to neutral blueprint, your pure blueprint of who you really are, that divine being that you truly are. We're all particles of creator. People call it God. That's their choice. I don't, and I used to. Now I call it one because I see if it's a field of consciousness rather than what people consider to be a God. The trouble with going down the God line is you're going down that line, you're in duality, and you've got God and Satan,
Right.
Lucifer, Prince of Darkness. That's the program as well. It's not about not being connected to create a source, but it's taking the religious aspect of it away and having that divine connection straight through. Nobody in the mean dictating, don't need all that other stuff. Just pull in that source divinity, that neutral pureness into your system and use that as your guide. Use that to cleanse you. Use it as your, mentor,
Hmm.
whatever you need. We've all got access to it. And even if you can't see the sun, close your eyes and visualize it. Buy a picture of the sun, stick it on the wall in your house. Connect that way. Everything's just programs. Everything's just layers of grids of light,
Mm.
waves, and frequency. You don't need to be in the actual sun to connect to the sun. You can do it with a picture on the wall. You can paint a picture of the sun, set your
You
intention. Then
can
that's
imagine the warmth, the sun's rays.
exactly. It still works.
So if Janine, people want to get in touch with you to hear more about your work, what you do, maybe they want to clear some stuff, how do they get a hold of you?
My website is JanineRegan-Sinclair.com.
I'll have the link
Uh,
in the show
yeah,
notes.
yeah. Oh, well, I've got 3 websites now. I've got one called theconsciousnessarchitect.com, which is my new one, which just deals with trauma packages.
Mm.
And Janine Regan-Sinclair is all my workshops, online courses, audios that delete programs and that kind of stuff on there, and house clearings as well. Everything's energy. And I've also got the One Reset Method, which is my corporate website for CEOs, C-suite executives, 8-week courses and so on. So
I was gonna say it's not all woo-woo. I
it's
mean,
not a woo. It depends who I'm talking to. I mean, we've been very open on here today because that's who we are. But in the corporate world, I'll explain it as quantum physics,
right. Which it
which is
is.
which it
It
is.
is.
When I say grids of lights, quantum physics, portals, just remember, guys, TV channels, programs,
Mhm. But that's
tell
Janine, that's what
blind
I
vision.
love. That's what I love about this work is that it's science, it's quantum physics. It sounds like it's this, that's why this podcast is called Beyond Love and Light, because
Yeah,
it's not just the fluff. This is
yeah,
real stuff, but it's been packaged a certain way as this like, oh, whoa, whoa, weird. Oh, you're into that stuff,
yeah.
but it's all backed in science, and that's the thing that's so incredible.
Well, it's been packaged that way by for an
Of
agenda
course.
as well. So don't. I've seen movies. I can't remember which one it was now, but they were talking about, oh, you don't want to do that stupid meditation stuff.
Right.
So that plants seeds in the consciousness. People think because you meditate that you're some kind of, dope smoking hippie and
Mm-hmm.
flower power. It's not. Like top Formula One drivers do positive visualization and meditations and guided visualization. UFC fighters are doing yoga and stuff like that these days. The people in the know are
No.
using the
Yeah.
techniques
Hmm.
that we use. But in general, it's poo-poo to keep the
Of
masses
course.
away from
And to
it,
keep you
you know?
distracted and focused externally.
Yeah, yeah. And people need to realize your spirit is your energy field, your consciousness, the electromagnetic field around your physical body is your immune system. People don't usually realize that. The aura is your immune system.
Hmm.
And that's under attack from EMFs, foods, alcohol, cigarettes, music
Yeah, basically
as
everything we
well.
talked about today.
Exactly. Yeah. So it weakens the immune system. Whereas love, light, sunshine, happiness, joy, singing, dancing, sex, nice sex, making love, all empowers that system, not nasty sex.
And fur
Yeah.
babies.
And fur babies, absolutely, animals, fantastic. Just petting them raises your frequency and they ground you.
Mm.
There are little healers as
Hmm.
well.
Okay. On that note, I think we'll wrap up. Thank you, Janine, so much for being here. This was a great conversation.
Thank you.
And yeah, I'll have everything in the show notes below or reach out to Janine. And thanks, everyone. And we'll see you soon.